While Donald Trump's low approval ratings could hurt Republicans in 2018, there are more than a few factors working against Democrats in the 2018 midterm elections. Chief among those, the simple reality of the election map. In the Senate, 23 Democratic seats, as well as 2 belonging to independents who caucus with Democrats, will be up for grabs. Now, 10 of those seats come from states that voted for the president last year. In contrast, only 8 Republicans total will be on the ballot. And of those, only Dean Heller in Nevada represents a state won by Hillary Clinton. The Senate obviously also inherently favors sparsely populated rural states over densely populated urban ones. Every state gets 2 senators regardless of population. In the Senate, Wyoming's not even 600,000 people have the same weight as California's more than 39 million people. So if Democrats cluster in those highly urban, densely populated states, they wind up with less representation in the United States Senate. All that led one politics watcher to tell Business Insider, quote, if the Democrats avoid a net loss, that would be a significant victory, and Republicans could make a small Senate gain even under poor conditions next year. Joining me now, Congressman Keith Ellison of Minnesota. He's the deputy chair of the Democratic National Committee. And Christina Greer, associate professor of political science at Fordham University, who tweeted about attending gerrymandering camp today, which I'm going to ask you about in a moment. I want to start with you, Congressman. And before I get to the topic at hand, I do want to ask about the bombing of a mosque in Bloomington, Minnesota, which is adjacent to your congressional district. The governor has called it an act of terrorism. The White House has said the president's being briefed on it. I wanted to know if the president has reached out to you or, to your knowledge, anyone in Minnesota about that attack.
No, the president has not reached out at all. We're looking forward to hearing from him. The fact is that when leaders stand silent, when people are targets of terrorist attack, that in the minds of some may be interpreted as condoning that. And so we definitely are looking forward to the president condemning this cowardly act of terrorism against a religious institution, a mosque. I was there yesterday. Governor Dayton has responded with tremendous leadership, along with Representatives Ilhan Omar and Representative Carlson and Mayor Gene Winstead, who is a Republican, by the way, has been on hand and been wonderful. But, you know, there's been a spike in anti-Muslim hate and hate crimes. And so it's not just this incident, but for the whole rash of anti-Muslim hate that has been happening under the Trump administration's watch, it is important for the president to make it clear that he does not approve of this.
Well, let me sort of segue off of that. I should note that no one was as far as I know, injured in that attack. It happened in an empty building.
Well, nobody was physically injured, but the psychological and emotional damage has definitely been inflicted.
I want to ask a related question, which is about how the Democrats work on this map. In places where the various sort of parts of the very diverse base that constitute the Democratic Party are not necessarily present, right? So Democrats won by 3 million votes in the popular election, but if they want to take back the House and the Senate, they got to win in lots of places that are not rich with the kinds of voters that are tend to vote very heavily Democratic. What is your read on how the party goes about doing that?
The Democratic Party has to compete in every single precinct in the United States by talking about the core issues that affect people and going door to door, going directly to people and delivering that message that we're the party who believes you should be able to go to the doctor when you're sick. They don't believe it. We're the party that believes we need to do something about climate. They're pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords. We're the people who believe we need good jobs and increasing in the minimum wage. They're against that. They're the ones who want to give tax breaks to big corporations. We believe working people need a break. Right. So, you know, the bottom line is that what we're talking about sells in every single inch of this country, but what we've got to do is what we've been doing this summer. We have this program called Resistance Summer, which puts canvassing all over the map in the United States, and where Democrats are telling the story to Americans everywhere and all the time. So we've been able to be active in New Hampshire recently, Oklahoma. We've been active and on the ground winning local and state seats, which is where we really got to win. So I feel that the real secret sauce of the Democratic Party has got to be activism, grassroots engagement, upfront relationship building.
So Christina, you're at gerrymandering camp, and one of the obstacles, despite however well one may canvass and however persuasive one might be, is the nature of how House districts particularly are carved. It's different than the Senate problem. What are you learning about how big a structural impediment the current constitution of those districts is?
I mean, this is the new frontier, and this is something that obviously we need to be vigilant about. I mean, local and state house races, especially these state houses, are incredibly important because they're the ones after the census, they're the ones who get to decide how we redraw these districts. So, it's not just about going door to door and making sure we, galvanize everyone. It's also making sure we have people in the pipeline so that they're ready to run for these offices in the state house. And, it's very clear that black women are, as Jason Johnson, who's a friend of the show, has said many times before, black women are the kryptonite to the Republican Party. And so it would behoove the Democratic Party to not only cultivate black women as not just voters, but also as candidates, right. So they can actually win some of these seats, because
wait a second,
these are the elected officials who can actually decide how these districts get redrawn.
But there's also, I mean, there's a lot of districts Democrats are going to have to win that are overwhelmingly white. I mean, there's places where, in order to flip the House, right, that you're talking about huge swaths of districts that are, say, 90% white, 92% white, where obviously turnout on people of color and leadership and political engagement with people of color is crucial. But there's the way the map works and the way that sort of racial geographic segregation in America works, there's just these districts that Democrats have to, a nut they have to crack, right?
Right, and I think, we have to look at partisan gerrymandering, we're looking at racialized gerrymandering, but we also have to recognize that, yes, if this is a majority white country, then let's actually cultivate some talent, either younger talent, female talent, or something, because right now the Democrats are chasing, this white working class male voter that in many ways is like the Loch Ness Monster. They have left in a lot of ways, so we need to figure out another strategy so that we can actually recapture some of these state houses, because if not, 2020, when the census is taken again, and in 2021 and 2022, when these state houses have the opportunity to redraw the districts, the Democrats will yet again be left out in the cold, and even worse than it was after the 2010 census.
All right, Congressman Keith Ellison.
Chris,
please,
I would have to say that I agree with much of what was said, but I would disagree that the Democratic Party is chasing white male voters. We're chasing candidates who can speak to the economic realities of the people who live near them, that they're voters. And some of those people may not be the same race as the people who are the majority who live there. And so we've got to get people who can speak authentically about the fact that so many people are just struggling to get food on the table in this economy. And of course, black women candidates, I'm all in favor of that and want to promote that, but we've got to get candidates who can really address the serious problems everywhere, all across this country, whether it's in Detroit, Minneapolis, or in western Ohio and Appalachia.
All right, Congressman Keith Ellison.